Hi there and welcome to this week's Sunday Girl, where I'm joined by my very special guest Anne O'Neill, and she is going to share with you some of her favourite reads of the summer. Anne, welcome to Sunday Girl.
Thank you, Orla. And can I just add, I love what you're wearing. You're kind of
you.
Sarah Jessica Parker, meets a bit of like Jackie Healy-Rae at the top, or Michael, but I love it. It works.
Two style icons.
two style icons, Sex in the City and, Sex in the Kenmare area. Yeah, no, you look fab. And thank you. I'm delighted to do that today on this kind of what we thought was going to be a blistering summer's day, but it has been a very disappointing.
It's been a hugely disappointing summer.
Washy out July.
But we put
what is it Oscar Wilde says?
Smile on. What does Oscar say?
Oscar says that conversations about the weather are the last vestige of the unimaginative, and we are not unimaginative.
So we are not going to.
So we're not going to really talk about it. Okay, so how am I going to start? I found this year kind of difficult with reading on lots of levels. I haven't been loving the fiction. Now, I was delighted to see 4 Irish writers on the Booker long list, and unfortunately I've only got to 2 of them, but I'm loving Paul Murray, and I'm reading that at the moment. I think you'd love it. It's called The Beasting. And I don't know if you ever read Jonathan Franzen's The Corrections. It's a huge epic novel, with a family in it. And again, this is a family. You've got Dickie and Imelda, PJ and Cassie, and their lives are going through absolute, hell. They've lost a lot of money, prestige. All the family are having issues and tissues. And Paul, I don't know, I loved Skippy Dies, one of his other novels. Paul does it brilliantly. I love all the characters. He's able to get into all of their internal kind of psychological thinkings in a fantastic way. Like even Imelda, the wife, Dickie's wife, at one point, all of her thoughts are brought to you as if it's Joycean. She's like Molly Bloom. Okay. So it's fabulous, but it's an easy read. Like you definitely, I'm doing it nearly every night in July, and it's 600 words, so it's a big tome.
It's a big book.
And
is it a beach book?
Yes, I think it's a beach book.
Okay.
Very much a beach book, because we all know the families, both of us would be quite familiar with some of the scenarios in this. And he evokes it really, really well. I haven't got to, and there's loads of secrets and machinations, and they're just slowly, being unfolded in the book. So I haven't finished it actually. I've been a little bit starty.
You've been having a great time.
I've been having a busy summer.
Despite the weather.
Yeah, the weekends have been a little bit OTT. And I also have Sebastian Barry's book with me.
I can go get Sebastian.
Yeah, he's just over there.
Here?
Now, I haven't read it yet, but also he is long listed for the Booker. And I always love Sebastian. It's just the warmth, the humanity, the exquisite prose. And it's definitely, a must read. I do. I do.
You have Sebastian.
I haven't. Yeah, Old God's Time. And he's got a boundless capacity for empathy. That will be a gorgeous read. That's
read,
my holidays.
One of his before the end of days.
Did you like that?
No, I didn't like it.
No, okay.
I felt it never would end. Now,
okay, that's fine.
It was about 2 cowboys, wasn't it? Out west.
I didn't read it actually. I didn't read it.
I hope I'm giving you the
no,
right one.
You are actually, because I think I met him around that time, and he told me that it was more or less for his son, that he always loved kind of cowboy kind of motifs and stuff.
It was about an emotional connection between 2 cowboys. I suppose maybe that is not the reading material I should be reading, but I just thought it would never end. I think it was called End of Days.
Okay.
I did struggle to the end.
Well, that's fair enough. We all do.
It's great sometimes though to look at a great author and say, that one just wasn't
Yeah.
for me.
No, absolutely. That's the pure joy of reading. No, not yet. I only got gifted it there on Friday, so I might bring it on holidays with me. And I'll see. But I mean, I've no problem these days if I start a book and 2 chapters into it, I don't like it. It's not doing it for me. Life's too short. I grab another one and go again.
Amazing books.
There's so much out there now. There's almost too many good books. I'm going to mention my Ruby Wax next, because
you kind of look a little bit like Ruby.
I know. I said that to her when I met her. So I met her this year at the Dalkey Book Festival, which was brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
What was she like?
She was great. I mean, I met her at the very end of her book signing, and I don't think she was all that mad for photographs, but she hadn't met someone like me who was going to get her into a selfie no matter what. So I kind of opened with, I once reviewed your book Frazzled for the Irish Times, so she kind of gave me a little bit of a wry look and went, oh really? And I said, yeah, I loved it. By the way, when I was younger, I was as loud as you and everybody thought I looked like you. And she went, you do stand over here. So I managed, and then she liked my necklace. And as Louise Long, my pal, said, why didn't you give it to her? And I went, she must be joking me. She's like, I love your necklace. So we had a real sort of little moment and, got the photograph. And I loved the interview with her as well. And as you know, like mental health is her, it's her big calling card now. And this is really good. I'm not as well as I thought I was.
Okay.
You could pick it up and, have little reads of all of it, because she's always funny. I mean, she can go to the bleakest parts of what it means to be alive, but she'll always be able to get some scintillating beauty and, life and fun
Like
out of it
yourself,
too.
Pat.
Sometimes,
Like you.
trying to stay sane in a completely chaotic world makes life incredibly difficult. I concur. Yeah. But yeah, that's our Ruby. So yeah, so the Booker Prize long list, it's kind of an odd one this year. I wouldn't have predicted all of them. And I generally do, being kind of a huge reader. But it's very arbitrary, it's very random. In fact, Julian Barnes, who's one of my favourite writers, he once described it as posh bingo until I think in 2011 he won himself, and he had to backtrack hugely and say that the judges were some of the greatest literary minds in Christendom. So I kind of liked that. So the next book I'm going to mention actually talks about literary prizes. It has that as its as the whole story, the whole kernel of the novel, and it's written by the very fabulous Edward St. Aubin, who I probably...
Well, you have recommended him in the past in 2 previous book reviews.
Yes, the Melrose novels and all of that. So he's described as having the wit of Wilde, the lightness of Wodehouse, the waspiness of Waugh, a joy. So he's a complete joy. So if you want to read this summer that talks about literary prizes, read this. But it's not even, it's just the characters and it's the way he evokes it. So he also got pipped at the post for a Booker. So he channeled all of that anger into Lost for Words. I think it was Kieran Desai won that year and he didn't. And he probably should have for Mother's Milk, because it was amazing. So yeah, definitely. And I met him too.
Edward St. Aubin, Lost for Words. Okay, I'm definitely going to read that.
Exactly. I can't do an impression of Edward because he's just too posh, but he was rather fabulous. Darling. Yeah.
I know that, I read everything you recommend in all your book reviews. I then read them afterwards. And one of my favourite books, I think, in the last 10 years was the book
Shuggy Bain.
I still think about that at night. From the opening word to the closing words. It was
amazing.
A masterpiece.
A masterpiece,
yeah. A masterpiece. So.
Nothing like that this year for me. Yeah, I didn't
of that
feel
emotional pull.
Yeah. Maybe I just haven't met it yet, but that was huge. Yeah, that was amazing.
So if you want kind of any of Anne's previous recommendations, there's 3 other videos back there you can watch as well. All of them excellent.
All of them excellent. Not. Okay, so I'm going to go back to a more sunny summer. It's the summer of 1982. Where were you, Orla? Same as me. We were 14 or 15.
Yeah, only dreaming of what I was going to do with my life then. Of all the fun
still
I
having
was
a
going
little,
to have.
Still having a little bit of fun. I think if you look at it in the charts, we had David Bowie, we had Don't You Want Me Baby, Human League. I remember the heat of that summer. I was 14, 15, just on that sort of cusp of, teenagedom, adulthood. And I still remember the media furore when a nurse was found murdered in the Phoenix Park. So funnily, this year, both Mark O'Connell, who is probably Ireland's most amazing essayist, and then also Harry McGee from the Irish Times, political correspondent, they both wrote very different takes, but to be read together as kind of companion pieces. They're fantastic, because I was on a bit of an 80s revival. I think I always am. But The Murder on the Taoiseach by Harry McGee, that just gives you a very journalistic take on everything that happened. We have this aristocrat, Malcolm MacArthur, that stole into the Phoenix Park, dressed in tweeds, with not dissimilar to you, Orla, and
there we go.
With the sole intent of robbing a car, robbing a bank, because he had fallen on hard times, and he was from a very aristocratic landed gentry background. So both of these books try to explore, where did this come from? Was he evil? Was he a sociopath? And actually Mark O'Connell's is even more interesting because he met him. You'd meet, MacArthur goes to loads of readings now. He goes to Liz Nugent's readings. He's always around Dublin. I was at a reading and I knew he was there. My friend, a barrister, recognised him, and I just thought, wow, he's huge. He looms huge in my imagination, because I loved John Banville's book about it as well, the Book of Evidence. That was amazing, loosely based on him, Freddie Montgomery. So the fact Mark O'Connell actually made contact with him was able to kind of meet him a few times, and I suppose he respected the fact that Mark is extremely, intellectual, and it wouldn't be a very Daily Mail take on what happened. And yeah, it's a very, very considered read. It's called A Thread of Violence, and it's nourished by a powerful moral intelligence and an enormous curiosity. I think they're both good to read because it brings you back to that time in
And it
Ireland.
brings you, I think,
Gubu.
Gubu.
Yeah,
I mean,
it led to
grotesque, unbelievable, bizarre, and unprecedented.
Good Girl, Orla.
Like, well, I remember it so well from the time. And of course, it was all connected into Charlie Haughey.
Yeah.
And I know that the books obviously explored that connection.
Big time, because the Attorney General was a pal of his, and unfortunately for him, he stayed in the house, and that led to huge, political
I remember reading the Sunday Indo,
drama.
and I was quite a young woman at the time, and I was very interested in politics.
You were,
and
as I was too.
I used to literally wait for the Sunday Indo's tale. It was Bruce Arnold who used to write.
That's
great
right, he was really good
in those days, and it was like watching an unfolding, like television drama wouldn't be up against it.
No, and we'd very little then. We'd no
really
Netflix.
True crime, really. Wasn't
Yeah.
it?
So I mean, it's just very interesting just to go back and look at that story, because it's fascinating, and how he got away with lots of it for a few days. It was the biggest manhunt in the state. So I enjoyed reading them
both
myself.
Of those you would recommend?
Yeah, to read one and then read the other.
True crime.
And even go back to John Banville's The Book of
crime
Evidence.
From the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. True crime from the 80s.
From the 80s.
Okay, Joseph O'Connor. I always have to read a Joseph O'Connor. I love him. I always have loved his books. And this one I was even more curious about, My Father's House, because it's based on Monsignor Hugh O'Flaherty. And I would know the O'Flaherty family from my Dublin days. Hugh and Catherine and Rory and Breed and the mum and dad, and they're obviously related to the Monsignor, and they always told me the stories, and I thought it was so swashbuckling that they had a granduncle. Yeah, so he grew up in Killarney, and I think his father was one of the managers in the golf club. He became a priest, and he kind of rose through the ranks. He did a load of PhDs. He ended up in the Vatican as a Monsignor, and he was posted there in World War II. Very, very bright man by all accounts, and when you read this, you can see it. And things were terrible there. You had like a Gestapo boss, Paul Hauptmann, ruling with terror. There was torture. There was, it was horrendous. And the fact that he was in the neutral state of the Vatican, he had power there, and he had a choir, as he called them, of people, and they helped to smuggle people out of Rome and to freedom. I think like 7,500 people were saved. So he was kind of like an Irish Oscar Schindler or whatever, basically. So like it's a huge story, and it's a scary story.
And it's true.
It's true.
It's a dramatization.
Well, yeah, it's dramatization, but I think Catherine said to me that she gave an awful lot of his documentation, his books, his letters, his emails to Joseph O'Connor, just so the authenticity sort of shines from the page.
Joseph has been in the news recently because, of course, he is Sinead O'Connor's
brother. Yeah.
And he recited that beautiful poem.
The Blackbird.
Yeah, it was really beautiful.
Really beautiful. Yeah, and I think both of us are probably. I'm really sad about Sinead. Yeah, just
you actually reviewed her memoir in our last review.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I know we both read it.
And we talked about how much
really in her voice. It was
she meant to us.
Yeah.
Next up, I'm very much non-fiction-y at the moment. I read Hadley Freeman's Good Girls, which is a beautiful memoir that she wrote about her life when she suffered from anorexia. Okay. So it's just a very interesting read, maybe for young mothers, maybe teenagers, anybody who works in the health kind of line, they'll find it very interesting. And she's a stunning. You read her in the Guardian.
Author, or?
No, she's a journalist essentially. So she works for the Guardian, whatever. Good Girls.
Good Girls.
A story of and a study of anorexia, and it's very bright too. I mean, she finds her own little connectors to find out why does she suffer. Why hasn't it been given enough research? But it's also very tender. It's a lovely. I love these reads.
Yeah, enough help. I mean, obviously in the world I work in at the moment, I obviously see a lot of eating disorders.
Yeah.
In both men and women. And I think what strikes me the most is the lack of help or resources for people when they know themselves they are suffering.
Oh, yeah.
Where do they go? There's only really good treatment centres now in Dublin.
Yeah.
I know body-wise, if anybody is watching it and feeling like that, there is a lot of help from an organisation called Body-wise.
And this is just a great read anyway, as a memoir. I love reading memoirs. I love just getting nuggets of truth from people's lives. That's what makes reading
So
worthwhile.
interesting that you're
Yeah.
stepping into somebody else's
Exactly,
shoes.
and
aren't you?
she's
Yeah.
brilliant at it. Like it's beautiful.
Okay, that's a great
Hadley,
recommendation.
is that okay?
Good Girls,
Lovely.
A Story and Study of Anorexia.
Now, just to cheer you up, because I know you're going to France soon. So
Amen.
exactly, Once Upon a Time World is a writer's story of the dark and sparkling history of the French Riviera, that little stretch of land that both of us love, that coast.
Love, and
yeah.
have not been to enough recently.
No,
actually.
no, you're going now
No,
shortly.
this is my first time going in many
So
years.
I haven't read it yet. Again, it'll have loads of references to Coco Chanel, to F. Scott Fitzgerald, to the history of the Riviera, gambling. Like there's a huge amount there.
And this is again, it's like this
beautiful
is again,
book. Look at
so
it.
it's not fiction.
Oh no, it's a history. Yeah, it's a history of who made
Dark
the
and
Riviera.
sparkling story.
Yeah,
of
because
the
it would be
French
dark.
Riviera.
I mean, Monaco being, a shady place for, no, sorry, a sunny place for shady people. It's the weather here is affecting me.
I'll definitely have to look at this before I go.
Yeah,
now to
keep
get
all
me in
loads
the
of
mood.
paintings and Cézanne. Yeah,
Oh,
look, it's a gorgeous book.
And it's beautifully illustrated.
Beautifully illustrated.
Oh my goodness.
That's going to be a bit of a
beautifully
holiday
illustrated.
read, and just so that you.
And can I
would
ask you, Anne, when you go on your holidays, do you actually bring the books or do you read them on a Kindle?
I bring the books, unfortunately.
Yes, so do I,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So there's always a trade-off between that heavy pair of shoes and the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I draw the book.
And the book wins.
And it usually comes back, absolutely battered. But
Sanded.
that's all part of it. They're beautiful,
Oh, look
aren't
at
they?
that. Grace
Gorgeous.
Kelly and
The
Cary
flights
Grant
were safe.
overlooking.
We might
And
take a couple of
we'll
pictures
take a few
of
pictures
those.
of that and blow them up.
Yeah, I
But
just thought, since we're not really getting a bit of a summer, it's always nice to kind of dip in.
we can visit the sunshine here through the pages of this book.
Exactly. Fiction this year, I love Service by Sarah
So this is a book
Gilmartin.
of fiction.
Yes.
Okay.
And she reviews in the Irish Times. She's a lovely young Irish writer. And she just got this pitch perfect. It's set in a kitchen, again, in the time of the Celtic Tiger.
Okay.
So it's, it's hot and heady. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of money. It's got all of that sort of potency that a summer read should have.
Sarah Gilmartin.
Service. And it's you've got a celebrity chef and you've got these beautiful young waitresses kind of, work. So you've got the back house and the front house. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of an incident in it, and the whole book hinges on that.
Okay.
And but it's very, very well put together. And hats off to Sarah Gilmartin. I really enjoyed it. I read it, I'd say, just one night when I wasn't sleeping very well. So it's a good
and
read.
I see that Joseph O'Connor has called it powerful and compelling.
Powerful and compelling, and anything powerful and compelling. Yeah,
Is for
we're
us.
with it. That's
Is
for
for
us.
us.
That's for us. Catherine May, I've done
You've
Wintering. I
recommended
love
her,
her.
yes.
And her podcast. And this is called Enchantment. And I liked it. I dipped in and out of it again. It's just her way of trying to tell us to try and be enchanted every day with something small. The way a child sees the world, because we're all so jaded and, we're not taking time to notice just small stuff like,
thing.
the pink colour of your hydrangeas and how she gets a little bit of enchantment and keeps it in her world.
I
Yeah.
know I will read that.
You love
because
that.
I become very
Everybody loves
interested,
her.
in that, when we're growing up, we have so much imagination as a child inside us, and we really lose that. As
Oh,
We're
completely.
kind of beaten around a little
Yeah,
bit
I
by
see
life.
that when I play with Lucy,
Yeah.
my little 3-year-old darling niece, and everything. It's like, what's that?
It's
Anne?
exciting
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's
new
yellow,
and
and
wonderful
I
and
mean,
we
I don't
lose
see
that
yellow.
magic, so we
I
need
think
to-
you
we
only
need
see
to
the
get
world
it
once,
back.
and they say as a child, that's probably it, unless you really make an effort to try and do so. So it's a lot of that sort of nature bathing, all that good stuff she recommends, and even if you only get 1 or 2 little pieces that you can bring into your life, it's worth it.
I'm
It's
definitely
beautiful.
going to read that. I'm definitely
Is
going
that
to read it.
okay?
Enchantment by Catherine May.
By Catherine May.
Awakening wonder in an exhausted age.
It is
Gorgeous.
yeah,
Gorgeous.
no, and she does that wonderfully. And her podcast, like most of these books have podcasts kind of, oscillating around them. There's a very good one, Harry McGee has a very good one about the MacArthur murders as well, Gubu. And you can listen to that as well as reading. You'll just be, all MacArthured out.
Immersed.
But I kind of like that. I like having,
Oh yeah, I think when I get into
take
something,
the
I want to know
medium,
everything around
everything.
it.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to mention one of my old favourite writers who I go back to. She's got tiny novellas, really. Her name is Jean Rhys. And again,
recommended her
oh, I
before.
always do.
Yeah.
I always do. She's so eloquent, but I always find her just in the bookshelf when I'm about to come to your house, and I look at them and I go, yeah, going to Paris. It's always lovely to read them beforehand. I mean, they're sad, they're evocative, but they're beautiful. And she loved Paris and she loved beauty, and she had a very kind of tragic life on lots of levels, but boy, does she excavate it and create pieces of art that endure. So to love Jean Rhys is definitely something I would recommend everybody should attempt to
And
do.
I haven't read her at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jean
You'd love her.
Rhys,
Good Morning, Midnight.
and
there's loads of them.
Quartet.
Leaving Mr. Mackenzie.
I even like the covers.
Wide
of these.
Sargasso Sea was her first one, and that was all about
modern classics.
Mrs. Rochester. It's a prologue to Emily Bronte's.
Okay.
But yeah, they are gorgeous.
Yeah. So these are on my list.
Have
as well.
I any other books in my bag?
I'm going to have to book a very long holiday. I'm going to have to disappear. I'm going to have to disappear somewhere.
I loved Everything But the Girl in the 80s, seeing as we are being very 80s-ish. So I always buy whatever Tracy Thorne writes, and she's been writing for a couple of years now. And I enjoy this, my rock and roll friend.
So Tracy Thorne was in Everything But the
Yes,
Oh, gotcha.
with Ben, with her husband. Yeah, she's beautiful. Yeah, like I love all of her songs. That's who there. Of course, you know her.
I know the look of her.
Yeah, so she writes, and it's a homage to friendship. About the Lindy, the drummer from the Go-Betweens that she met way back in 1983. God, 1983 is coming up everywhere. And they lived on different sides of the world, but they had a friendship. So she kind of excavates and mines the friendship here for my rock and roll friend. And you, Orla, you are my rock and roll friend.
You're my rock and roll friend, baby.
Let's rock.
Let's continue to rock.
I think so, yeah. We'll keep on rocking. Like Mick Jagger can do it, so can we.
So can we. And on that powerful note, Anne and I are about to rock. And we both wish you an amazing week.